Welcome to Salcedo Paranormal. It is Thursday, December 22nd, 2022, and today, I will be reviewing three more stories from H.P. Lovecraft, the complete fiction. As always, you can find all the episodes of the show, along with links to social media and other ways to contact me, at the podcast page, and that is salcedoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always happy to hear from you all, whether you have comments or questions or topic suggestions or stories of paranormal experiences, whether they're your own or others that you trust. Happy to either read those or have you join me on the show to talk about those experiences. And I will do one more show tomorrow, same time, 1 a.m. Eastern on Friday and or 10 p.m. Pacific Thursday. And I'll be doing just finding some more true paranormal stories from the web to close out this last week of shows for basically for this year. It'll be I will most probably come back on New Year's Day and or New Year's Eve, that night morning time there. And but depends on how the book goes that I'm working on. We'll see. So, but either way, tomorrow will be the last one for a little while. But and I still will be doing other appearances as they come up, if they do come up on other shows. But at least for as far as my own show goes, tomorrow will be the last one for a little while. So I've been reviewing this book for a while. This H.P. Lovecraft, the complete fiction, and so I'm getting closer to the end. I have, I think, around 9 more hours to listen to. Out of the 48. Yeah, thank you, Matt. Says take a break. You deserve it. Yeah, it's partly for family gatherings to start with, and then yeah, to work on that book. I'd love to finish that soon. So, but so I've been listening to this book for a while, and I'm getting close to the end, but still have several more stories to listen to, and so there'll probably be another 2 or 3 shows left to finish that reviewing that book. But it has been an amazing experience. I had heard of Lovecraft before, of course, but never had read any of his stuff until some friends, including Derek in the chat there, got me into it, and I'm really glad that they did, because it's been just the stories there are so amazing. It's a lot of it could almost be considered science fiction without the technology. Is how I like to think of it in a lot of cases. Kind of then it's also horror, and so horror stories, scary stories, kind of thing, and a lot of the paranormal, supernatural as well. So anyway, so I have 3 stories that I will be talking about tonight. So I will get to reviewing this first one here. And let's see here. Get to the file. So this first one is The Horror at Red Hook. And let's see here. So looking at this file, just gotta find the there we go. So it starts with a detective by the name of Malone, who was on duty in this town, or this area, I'm sorry, of Brooklyn, apparently in New York, I believe, that led to him having a fear of large buildings. And he tells a story basically about how it all started. He was working in this waterfront area, called the slum in the story, talking about the crime and the gangs, and hinting at sort of the occult being present in the area. and um and so Malone was hired, well, was sent to work on this case of regarding Robert Sodam, Seydam, um and this is what led to to him being involved in this area. um so let's see here. I'm just gonna say Seydam's. uh that's how I'm gonna say his name because I don't know how else to say it. So his personality changes suddenly, as witnessed by locals in the area. He was known as a recluse, but he was seen around town looking younger and more active. And turns out he is also at this time um, become engaged to a fiance up in the higher levels of the social structure. But also at the same time, there's an increase in local kidnappings, which lead to a police raid, which Malone is Malone is part of. But this raid doesn't give anything useful to this case, except for a few strange inscriptions in Saidan's loft, or not loft. What do you call it? Flat. There we go. That's the word. So after this, Saidam gets married, and he and his bride leave on a ship. And according to witnesses, there's a scream that is heard. And when the crew enters Saidam's stateroom, they find this married couple, both dead, with claw marks on their remains. And later on, some men from another ship come on board and claim Saidam's body. So, and this is all just being related throughout the story here. So Malone enters Saidam's flat to see what he can find in relation to everything that's been going on, and he finds a door in this basement that basically breaks open and pulls him inside somehow. And while he's in there, he witnesses people who are making human sacrifices, and all of this along with the ritual that brings Saidam back to life. And then of course in the story, now this is something that happens in some of Lovecraft's stories, sort of an element that is repeated that you can find once you've gone through enough of them. Malone passes out, goes unconscious, and he's found in the basement of Saidan's flat, which has caved in above him, killing everyone else inside except for him. And that the tunnels and chambers that were uncovered in the raids were filled in and with cement. And even though Malone believes that and notices that the threat to Red Hook is still around, and in the form of this basically occult presence that drove these events. So, and that's where that story ends. So it really does kind of leave off with almost a cliffhanger in a way. Or some would just call it a good horror story ending, which is how some stories go. Really funny, kind of funny story about how that works. Real quick, it cracks me up now. is, so for those that don't know, I've done some writing of fiction over the years, and one of my two novels that are actually still out technically on Amazon. I don't like plugging my own stuff really, but even though I've been told I should do that more. Um, it is called From Unknown, and it's a horror story. Basically, it's a horror novel. Science fiction mixed with the paranormal. And of course, I'm not going to say much about the story, except to say that it does have a similar kind of um, ending where everything is not quite okay. So, and I've had I won't say who, but they'll probably know if they hear this that I'm talking about them. Someone that I know that didn't care for that kind of ending. They wanted me to continue writing the story and and basically conclude it with a more pleasant ending. And so, and of course, I've had to tell them, no, I'm sorry. That's how the story ends. I I don't really have any desire to write any more to it because that's how, that it ends the way it ends. There's something about that when you um I think anyone that does works on anything um in a creative way can tell you that sometimes when it's over, it's over. It's done. At least unless someday eventually you get another idea of how to continue it. But until that happens, it's over. So anyway, just kind of funny how things remind me of things. Process of doing these shows. But yeah. So anyway, moving on to the next story here. Um, so this next one is a bit shorter. Let's see here. I just gotta get to that file or into the page. This one is another short story. Like I said, it's shorter than the first one, and it's called The Hound. And let's see here. So the story, let's see here. Okay, here we go. It starts with an unnamed narrator, which is common, talking about um, how afraid he is about or of something that he believes. That's weird. I just heard a weird sound. That believes is out to kill him. That's not ominous. Hearing a strange sound as I'm saying that. But anyway, so the narrator and his friend, who is in the story, I'm guessing this is the last name. It's called Saint John, which I've heard of that before. Last name is being Saint whatever as the last name. So the narrator and Saint John are a pair of um, basically outsiders, loners in many ways, although they work together. Um, have this deranged interest in grave robbing, and so they constantly dig into crypts and graves, and often keep items from these graves as souvenirs. So this is already a dark story, and so they live in the same house as well. So they have a sort of a museum regarding based from all these little um trips that they go on, and so they're also into uh so they arrange a private exhibition of these items and for other people to come and see who are also into these things. These this museum consists of course, headstones, preserved bodies, skulls, and of course, several heads in different phases of decay. But this also includes statues, strange paintings, and a locked portfolio that appears to be bound in human skin, which is lovely. Um, so the story focuses on one day where they learn of a grave that um, is of an old grave in a cemetery nearby that holds a legendary tomb raider inside it. So someone like them, and this tomb raider is said to have stolen a, a powerful item from a mighty from a powerful tomb, another powerful person's tomb, basically implying magic, I think, in a way. So they travel to this area, and they they dig up the grave of this former grave robber. So and um so yeah, they're really into this because of the, I guess, the connection to the one that they're digging up. And so this person though had apparently this there's a story, this grave robber was alive centuries before. And and so they once they reach the old cemetery, they find, or they hear the howling of a giant hound. But they ignore it and start digging. And then eventually they hit a solid object deep in the ground, and they clear the last of the soil. Excuse me. And the two men um, dig up this casket, which is elaborate and um, very well made, apparently. And they see that in several places in the skeletal remains, they appear to be torn and shattered as if attacked by a wild animal. But um, the skeleton is still completely there. And attached to the skeleton, hanging around its neck, is this amulet. And so they realize that this is an amulet mentioned um, in the Necronomicon, which is a book that appears in a lot of Lovecraft stories. And so they know that they've found the item that was said to be extremely powerful, and they so of course they want it, and so they remove it from the skeleton and then leave. And as they're leaving, they notice again the sound of a howling hound off in the distance. So they return home, uh, and that's when, of course, strange things start to happen around their home. This howling starts happening outside their house, and there's other odd sounds that can be heard outside and inside the house. Um, and then one night, St. John is attacked and killed by something that the narrator claims the amulet had basically summoned. So the narrator destroyed this museum before leaving the house and traveling away, hoping to escape this whatever this is that's going on here. But there's still these strange sounds that keep surrounding him, and so he travels back to, I guess it was the country of Holland, which is where this grave was at. And so he travels there, but along the way, the amulet is stolen from him mysteriously. Um, and so the next day he finds in the newspaper a story about a band of thieves that were apparently killed by an unknown creature. And so the narrator uh, goes back to this graveyard and digs up that same grave again. And this time the remains in the the coffin are not as they were. It's almost like it might not even be um the same person buried in there, because there there is more of a body there than there was the first time. And along with that, there is the amulet. Let's see, what was it? Yeah, let me see here. I believe I'm right here. So, um, and so the narrator um flees the area, and he's he's afraid that whatever this is that has been killing people is after him. And so that's what he believes is uh is after him and what killed his friend. And that's where the story ends. So get another one of those stories with the just a wonderful ending. Of course, sarcasm, but anyway. So, but amazing story. Almost makes you wonder who exactly was in that grave again, and how did they get there? Was it the same person that was in there before? But then, how do you explain the different state of the remains? Um, just a lot of questions left in that story. So, but yeah, so that's that story. I have one more to go here, and this one is called "The Lurking Fear." It really is amazing to me how someone can write so many stories and still come up with different titles for all these stories. Um, and have them be relevant, but also not identical in some ways. So, but so this is a short story again. Um, but this one again comes in chapters. So the story starts in 1921. Um, and when Monster Hunter, that the story does not name, goes to a place called Tempest Mountain, which is in the Catskills range, um, because of reports of many attacks by a group of unidentified creatures attacking the local population there. And this has reached the media, and so this is what has brought this monster hunter to the location. Also, a month before that, there had been a really strong, unusually strong thunderstorm in this area, who or that went through the region, and destroyed many homes apparently. But when the monster hunter looked at these homes, um, he was he decided that he realized that maybe they weren't destroyed just by the storm; they were actually destroyed by this enraged beast. And so this this area was home to only 75 people, but the entire area was completely destroyed. And everyone in who lived in this area were also apparently deceased after this whole thing. So this hunter uh, talked to everyone else in the surrounding areas, um, and he found out that a lot of the stories and legends surrounding this area are about a mansion known by or owned by a family with the last name of Martens, which is a it's been there for a over 100 years, but um it's been abandoned for many years as well. So the hunter takes two companions as bodyguards and goes to the mansion at night. And of course, while they're inside this mansion, um, a storm shows up. So this monster hunter stays in the room of Jan Martens, who was a member of the family that was believed to have been killed. And despite having taking turns keeping watch, uh, basically one awake while the two were asleep, and being armed, the group eventually all fell asleep, which is an odd thing that you do hear about happening in some cases in paranormal encounters. So that's an interesting detail there. But the hunter woke up at one point to find that both of his basically his bodyguards were missing. And when he was and then of course this was surprising, and there was a flash of lightning that revealed a giant shadow that was cast on the mansion's chimney, and neither of this hunter's companions were ever found again. So so this was, of course, traumatizing. So the hunter continued the investigation after leaving the area, and he explained what was going on to a local journalist with the name of Monroe. And so Monroe agreed after hearing the whole story to help. And the hunter and then Monroe, searched the area for clues to the whole situation and this possibly murder, this creature that was killing people, and possible remains of the family, the Martens family itself. There's no sign of the family, but apparently there is an ancestral diary that once belonged to them. And this whole time, this monster hunter has a feeling of being watched. So he and Monroe eventually are trapped by another thunderstorm and find an abandoned cabin in the area. And so the two are stuck in this cabin, and there's this thunderbolt that comes down, or that goes across the sky, and Monroe walks over to the window to look at the damage. The storm clears up, but Monroe never moved away from the window. And when the hunter tried to get Monroe to turn back around, it turns out Monroe is dead as well. Apparently, having been killed by a direct attack to his head and face by something from outside. So, having at this point, this is going several weeks into this investigation. This monster hunter is not telling anyone else about what's going on at this point, but still researching what the history of this family. So this hunter goes back to this mountain after fleeing the area again. And he's convinced at this point, after all this research, that the whatever this creature is, it's connected to the Martens family. And in fact, he believes that it is the ghost of Jan Martens, which is odd. I've never heard of a monster ghost in that sense. But also I've heard of similar things, Bigfoot, uh, dogmen being able to teleport or vanish and reappear and vanish, somewhat like a ghost. So that is somewhat like that, I guess. So he finds out in this research that the mansion that was abandoned, of course, was built by uh, the first Martens in the area. His first name I'm not going to try to say. He was a Dutch merchant from New Amsterdam, um, who basically was he moved to this remote location and put the mansion there, um, to get away from the rest of the people uh, colonizing North America at that time. So this is apparently back during around the time of the that's probably doesn't say, I don't think, but I'm guessing based on that, pre-American Revolution, so around that era. And it mentions that in this area from then on, the family grew, but it also stayed isolated from the outside world. And of course they started to, part of how they were able to grow was they started um, basically marrying and mating with the various other kind of outcasts and some servants from the mansion and throughout the area. And so this entire family group grew and spread out across the valley, and eventually became the entire population of that area, basically considered mountain men. But the core family stuck to the mansion and began isolating themselves even from the rest of the community. And so this Martens, the original one, joined the colonial army, and he was the only person, apparently, to leave the area. I think they mean Jan Martens here at this point, I'm guessing. But one of the members of that family, anyway, left the area, and he was the only one of the family to ever do that. But once he came back, he found that he was now treated as an outsider, and so made plans to leave, which he told his friend about in letters, which is how the monster hunter found out about all this. So the see here. So I'm sorry about this. 1 second here. So the letters stopped after a while when Martin's friend visited the mansion. Okay, in 1763. So Martin's friend was told that he had been struck by lightning during a thunderstorm. So it was Jan. Jan's friend didn't believe this because of the correspondence not matching up to the date of the supposed death, and also because of the sort of the way the family was acting. And so the family was investigated by local authorities regarding the death of Jan Martens, but there was not enough evidence for a conviction. And eventually, this extended family disappeared from the area entirely, except for leaving nothing basically except their buildings, and once in a while a light being seen in the mansion. The last time this was seen was in 1810. So eventually, in about 6 years later, a group of concerned local citizens checked out the mansion, and found that the family had disappeared, and the mansion was basically um, starting to fall apart. And so let's see here. So the hunter at this point found his way to the mansion again, and looking for evidence of all of this, and maybe of what was going on with this ghost. He went to the grave of Jan Martens and dug it up. But instead of finding a body, he found an entrance to a tunnel. And so he traveled through this tunnel and eventually came across some kind of goblin-like creature who was in the shadows, and he the this figure is in shadow because the hunter only has a small flashlight. But there's a lightning strike that actually hits in the tunnel in between the hunter and then this creature. And when it fades, the creature is not there, but the hunter can see this red glare from the distance. And apparently it is, turns out it's a burning cabin with one of the creatures inside of it. So, let's see here how much more I have to go. Okay, last chapter. Good. Um, so of course, and after that, the story really is about this hunter going back to check out more and more in this area, and then having more and more frightening things happen, and then leaving, and then coming back. So, eventually, the hunter did return, and found that the grave that he had dug up and the entrance to that tunnel had caved in due to the storm. And so he eventually starts to look into the rest of the area and finds these strange mounds that surround the mansion. And he realizes that the mounds are tunnels made by not one but multiple creatures. So he digs his way into this tunnel network through by basically digging into the mansion cellar. And so yeah, there's a series of tunnels. And of course another thunderstorm approaches. So there's all these thunderstorms that are going on whenever these things are happening. And one, I guess, could say it's just for effect, but it doesn't seem like that. It seems like there is some kind of direct connection between these unusually strong thunderstorms and all this activity going on. So he, when he's in these tunnels, he finds a smaller member of this group of these creatures. He finds several of them, and witnesses this attack on this weaker creature by the others surrounding it. And so this hunter decides he's going to try to kill the one of these creatures to find out what it is. And so he does that. And when he does that, it kills the creature. And it turns out that these almost Bigfoot-like creatures, but more almost devolved beyond that, are basically this family, this Martens, who somehow have devolved, partly due to their isolation, into these creatures. So it's not ghosts after all, in a way. It's just this isolated group of people that somehow change into these creatures. And I wonder if it's partly because of that storm, as well. It doesn't really go into a lot of details. But so of course he flees the area again, and she's afraid now that these creatures like this family could be anywhere. So, and that's where that one ends. So anyway, that is the last of the stories here. And so of course there's more that I will share in the next review episode, which at this point will be in January. But yeah, so I think that's it for today. And thank you all for being here and listening. And I will be back tomorrow with one more episode. Before I take a week off, maybe 2 at the most. And then we'll go from there. So until tomorrow, I will talk to you then on the next episode of Salcedo Paranormal. Take care, everyone.